Safety information for nitrocellulose. Industrial nitrocellulose wetted with alcohol, UN 2556, is classified as an F on the hazard symbol scale and as R11, meaning highly flammable, in risk phases. All the procedures for transportation, storage, and handling should be carried out in accordance with national, state, and local environmental regulations. Chapter 1. General Instructions. Because nitrocellulose is highly flammable, keep the work area or warehouse and their surroundings clear of any sources of fire or of any objects which could possibly ignite the nitrocellulose. Static electricity may lead to ignition. Therefore, do not bring any equipment or objects capable of creating sparks close to the nitrocellulose area. Do not bring into the work area any ovens, matches, lighters, cigarettes, or cookware. Do not smoke in the nitrocellulose work area. Maintain good ventilation if inflammable solvents are present. If it is impossible to avoid welding in the warehouse, all nitrocellulose drums must be moved out of the warehouse and transferred to a safe area equipped with the proper facilities for storing nitrocellulose. Do move the equipment and/or vessels which may have nitrocellulose residue to a safe place. Clean the equipment or vessels thoroughly before fixing. Keep the containers tightly closed. Because industrial nitrocellulose is wetted with a dampening agent, isopropyl alcohol, IPA, for safety reasons, the seal of the PVC liner containing the alcohol-dampened nitrocellulose must be kept airtight in order to keep the nitrocellulose wet. The original manufacturer's packaging has the nitrocellulose sealed in an airtight PVC liner with flange packing to avoid evaporation of the dampening agent during handling and storage. Follow these special precautions in the case of sampling or partial use of the nitrocellulose. Always reseal tightly, making sure the container is airtight and that the nitrocellulose is kept wet. The evaporation of the dampening agent will cause the nitrocellulose to dry out, thereby becoming very sensitive to environmental conditions such as shock, friction, and sparks. Drying out the nitrocellulose will also affect its solid content and viscosity when it is dissolved. Do not expose nitrocellulose drums directly to the sunlight. If this is the case, protect the drums with a canvas cover. If the surrounding temperature is higher than 30 degrees Celsius, decrease the surrounding temperature by activating a water spray and creating better ventilation. Be careful. Nitrocellulose will decompose as storage temperature increases. High storage temperature will speed up the nitrocellulose decomposition. Because of this, storage facilities and the handling and working areas should be equipped with good ventilation as well as sun-blocking apparatus. Furthermore, nitrocellulose is very sensitive to friction and shocks from rough handling. Avoid dragging and dropping the drums or rolling them along on their bottom covers. It is a good idea to heighten the driver's awareness of these problems. Always check that the work area remains uncontaminated. Soaking spilled nitrocellulose with water will prevent the accidental spreading of the product. After soaking, transfer to a metal waste container. Cover the container and remove from the work area. Store waste underwater. The discarded product is a hazardous waste. Disposal of untreated nitrocellulose waste requires an incinerator facility licensed to dispose of hazardous waste. Waste nitrocellulose should not be buried underground or discharged to a sewage disposal system. Rags with oil or grease should not be placed near nitrocellulose because the oil spots on the rags will create heat and spontaneous combustion without any warning. The used rags should be disposed of immediately by burning them in an incinerator. Chapter 2. Special Instructions for Transportation. Precautions for moving nitrocellulose. Avoid any shocks and friction. Proper tools should be used to move nitrocellulose drums. A specific hand truck should be used to load nitrocellulose. If a hand truck is not available, a surface plate should be used to roll the drum down off the truck as slowly as possible. Do not drop the drum or slide it on a hard surface. Even dropping it on a rubber surface should be avoided. Protect nitrocellulose from direct sunlight when transporting it in trucks. Any friction or impact on a drum surface may increase the temperature dangerously high. Fix the drum securely on the vehicle during transportation. The hazard sign must be affixed to the nitrocellulose containers with the following information. Industrial grade nitrocellulose, dampened with 30% plus or minus 2% IPA. Highly flammable. Keep container tightly closed. Keep away from sources of ignition. No smoking. Take precautionary measures against static discharges. Avoid shock and friction. Do not drop or slide on hard surfaces. In case of spillage, keep wet with water. Shovel into containers. Use non-sparking shovel. In case of fire, use water spray. Always keep nitrocellulose drums upright when transporting. Nitrocellulose drums should not be put into a freight container containing other dangerous cargo. Chapter 3. Special Instructions for Storage. Storage should be carried out in accordance with national, state, and local environmental regulations. Nitrocellulose should not be combined in storage with other dangerous materials. A storage distance of at least 30 centimeters should be maintained from the warehouse wall. Hobnailed shoes are prohibited in the nitrocellulose storage area. Empty containers usually retain some hazardous residue. Make sure that there is no nitrocellulose left in an empty drum. If any trace is found, pour water into the empty drum to wet the residue, and immediately dispose of it at a licensed hazardous waste facility. To prevent the aging of nitrocellulose, follow the first in, first out regulation on nitrocellulose rotation. Regularly check the fire control system and firefighting equipment, such as fire hoses, and make sure that everything is in good working condition. Chapter 4. Special Instructions for Handling Large Volumes of Nitrocellulose. Do not store excess nitrocellulose in the work area. Use only non-sparking pneumatic tools or manual tools for drum opening. Nitrocellulose that has escaped and been scattered around the work area becomes dry easily. This increases the risk that the nitrocellulose will ignite if exposed to any impact or friction. Therefore, the scattered particles should be collected carefully when weighing and packing the nitrocellulose. To prevent the accumulation of nitrocellulose particles, always clean steam pipes, lighting fixtures, power switches, and ceilings thoroughly. Regularly wash or clean the walls, shelves, floors, and machines using wet rags as necessary to avoid the accumulation of the nitrocellulose particles. For special buildings and machines which may be especially difficult to clean, the cleaning process should be carried out at least once a year. If the above two instructions are ignored, the risk of fire or explosions will increase. To prevent the accumulation of static electricity, the nitrocellulose work area should be grounded with copper wire to safely discharge any static electricity. Chapter 5. Instructions for laboratory use. Avoid drying out the nitrocellulose. It is very safe when dampened with alcohol. However, when nitrocellulose becomes dry, it is very dangerous. Dried nitrocellulose can easily be ignited by being struck accidentally, or by receiving a heavy impact, or from exposure to electrical sparks. If drying of the nitrocellulose is unavoidable, dry as little as possible. A chemist should wear protection and dry the nitrocellulose with the following procedures. An independent room should be used to dry the nitrocellulose. Use a dryer with double layers of safety glass. Never use an electric hot air oven. The drying parameters should be set as follows: 80 degrees Celsius plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius for 2 hours, or 60 degrees Celsius plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius for 3 hours. For safety reasons, we recommend the lower temperature, which is 60 degrees Celsius plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius for 3 hours. Remember to keep the temperature as low as possible. The maximum drying weight should not exceed 400 grams each time. When opening the door of the drying oven, the chemist must stand on the side of the oven to prevent injury in the case of an accidental explosion. Never stand in front of the oven. Collect all leftover nitrocellulose after the lab test. The residual nitrocellulose should be immediately returned to the container, and the container should be well sealed. Soak any waste with plenty of water. Dispose of untreated nitrocellulose waste at a facility licensed to handle hazardous waste. Chapter 6. Nitrocellulose Fire Control Instructions. Nitrocellulose is stable and safe if the preceding instructions are followed precisely. However, if the nitrocellulose does catch fire, it can only be extinguished by using large quantities of water applied as a mist or spray. Nitrocellulose generates its own oxygen. Therefore, foam fire extinguishers and dry chemical fire extinguishers are not suitable for a nitrocellulose fire. If nitrocellulose catches fire and there are still large quantities of nitrocellulose in stock, the best course of action is to evacuate everyone immediately and contact the fire department with a clear and concise explanation of the urgent nature of the emergency.